Yeah, once again, it's great to be back here in New York with you, Roger. I mean, as always, you've just built another level of your incredible machine, and it's impressive. Yeah, so this is going to be a lot of different things in a short amount of time, but somehow I want to start with limitless and minimally invasive spine surgery. So this group really represents the tip of the spear in a specialty that has truly transcended so many revolutionary changes in how we build products, how we integrate them, how we adapt, how we fight data obstruction vehicles. I mean, this is the group that pushes boundaries for spine surgery. And so limitless surgery is really, in my mind, the ethos that good enough is never good enough. And what we're doing today, by definition, can't be good enough a year from now. So we always have to perpetually push. Not everybody's a good pusher or scout or lone wolf or explorer, but not everybody's a great data person either, or a great, so we need to collect all of the brilliance of this specialty and really celebrate it. My canvas has always been extreme, obsessive, compulsive, progressive data. I personally don't really like retrospective data. By the time that data, if it's mine, is going to print, I hopefully have destroyed my own personal results at that point. That's been my driving force. So when I look at this artificial intelligence to surgery intelligence, which is the culmination of 2 years at MIT in 2018, 2019, digital mastery forever forward. Within our project, we're trying to capture basically the codified choreography of every surgeon's every surgery. And obviously I use my canvas of going from open spine surgery in the early 90s, being Rick Fessler's resident, doing the, as many MED tube surgeries in the early 90s as anybody in the world, while still a resident, to, minimally invasive reconstruction, TLIF, arthroplasty, et cetera. But every piece of the puzzle was built towards the ideal that it was about human functional performance. And I'm also going to introduce the collision of healthy longevity. I was in Saudi Arabia talking about artificial intelligence in healthcare and healthy longevity, and they do collide. This is my favorite quote, Ayrton Senna, Formula One world champion. You have this limit, you reach this limit, you think you can go farther. It's one of the most timeless quotes in sports, and I think it speaks perfectly to our journey in surgery, and it certainly has been my ethos. AI to me is probably the most powerful tool we'll ever use in our lifetimes. I'm grateful to be alive as AI has come into play. Do I think it's ready for doing all of these complex things? No. Do I think it's absolutely ready to help us ask better questions, to help us analyze better studies, to help us, remove implicit bias when present? Accuracy is important, precision is important, coordination, choreography. There are so many things that happen in an episode of care of surgery that have direct and indirect consequences to our surgery. So that's more where I am, and ultimately data analysis. How do you make sense of complex data? You know what you know, and you know what you don't know what you don't know, but you also get really easily biased based on what you do know and what you're convinced is right. And yet so often we find that, something we thought was right turns out not to be as right as we thought it was. And it's those little marginal gains in understanding that propel us forward. And nothing I've ever done, me versus me, has been a cataclysmic shift on a Tuesday. It's been about 1 million micro expressions forever forward. And I think we all, if we really ask ourselves, how do we grow? That's really how we grow. Every now and then there's like this epiphany, but usually it's boring. Usually it's just very granular. So, I distinguish AI, humanistic AI versus Big Brother AI versus predictive AI. And Big Brother AI to me is coming in the form of some products which have surveillance AI, auditory, visual, become a brilliant AR tool, HR tool for administrators in hospitals, clinicians universally around the world, because I'm traveling on behalf of my company. Oh, my disclosure is XX. I founded that company, and I'll talk about it in a minute. But I get to see all this stuff in real time in healthcare. And, Big Brother AI is not going to be good for healthcare. and it's going to be predictive and prescriptive. Humanistic AI is a brilliant human enhancement tool, and it optimizes based on intent, augments surgical team skill and safety. By that, I don't mean actual surgery, and I don't mean actual surgeon decision-making. We're not ready for that. We are ready to start capturing and encoding micro LLMs, surgeon-specific, procedure-specific, which is beyond the scope of OpenAI. General LLMs are taking it all in and letting it figure it all out. That's garbage. You've got to take it in context to all the information that's attached to it. Because if Dr. Hartle does something his way, and I have a tip and trick in my way, my tip and trick might be catastrophic in his way, and vice versa. How we do things matters to the way we do things. And that's true in sport, it's true in aviation, it's true in military, it's also true in surgery. So, the innovative continuum in spine, foundational era was basic modular system era, 3D biomechanics era, ultimately platforms, lean platforms, enabling tech, digital imaging, robotic conversion. All of this is perpetually going forward towards standardizing best-of-class workflow relative to specific procedural goals. It can be a piece of a procedure or it can be the whole procedure. Just depends on the scope of the procedure. Ultimately, workflow and cognitive optimization era, devices to decisions, all the big robotics platforms and nav systems and radiological platforms are applying workflow and cognitive optimization. I call the surgery intelligence era what we're part of pioneering, and it's basically creating the digital twin of every surgeon's every surgery. We're starting with the boring stuff. Phase 1 is not clinical light, it's not clinical heavy. Phase 1 is logistics, organization, choreography, capture the data, create a process and a foundational layer for capturing the data so that we have a basis to actually retrospectively analyze data intelligently and then push it forward, which is what prospective data looks like. Healthy longevity is here. 1 in 6 humans will be over 60 by 2030. I spoke on this in Saudi Arabia a few weeks ago. What derails someone? Billionaires are throwing, I don't have the sound on here, but they're throwing billions of dollars into longevity, wearables, genetic engineering, all sorts of things to prolong life. Ironically, what we do in spine and orthopedic hip and knee and joint, musculoskeletal surgery, all of those injuries and the lack of the best possible outcome actually can derail somebody who has a brilliant longevity map. But suddenly they're a decrepit longevity. Health span is more important than lifespan. And we play a tremendous role in that. And I think personally that this is a huge opportunity for musculoskeletal health to elevate our leadership and our outward messaging so that we can change some of the policies that are worldwide right now and the way decisions are made in managing this stuff. And so I think everyone should know that. Musculoskeletal surgery represents the largest, most impactful sector in modern medicine. 1.7 billion people attributed to disability. 100 million procedures a year being done in this space. Direct surgical tools have been the focus of innovation. Very little has gone to team and episode of care, which is the premise and the basis for why I built XX. All trends in every evolutionary aspect point towards standardization of surgery, coupling of holistic care, marginal gains in surgery care for the best, most functional, healthy longevity solutions. That's the why. That's why all of this matters and all the granular detail about MIS. But, all of this MIS stuff we're all talking about and doing, it's so fun for me to watch because I was beating my head against the wall 25 years ago. And nobody was talking about it or, needless to say, hearing it. So does dead time exist in the best operating rooms? Every great team I know says, oh, we don't need it, we're great. My teams are the best. Well, the reality is we found in our early experience with the company that if you take an episode of care which starts at the end of the last episode, goes to the end of the current episode, usually the surgery is about 30 to 40% of the actual episode time. And none of that other stuff gets accounted for. And I wonder, do anesthesiologists lie about their time? Do circulating nurses lie about their time? I've been pissed off. I got anger management before, yes, for just complete, utter waste and disregard for time. Surgery teams systematically misjudge intra-op timing, perceived delays, predictable system factors, misconception, perception is noisy, actual causes are measurable. All of this is ambiguous garbage, and that's our data to optimizing surgical episodes of care. Does that have an impact on surgery? Yeah. 20 to 40% of OR time is lost to preventable dead time. Dead time basically affects infection rate, it affects bleeding rate, affects catheters and lines that we wouldn't ordinarily put in if we could buy back 2 hours of time. It affects DVT rate, pressure source. I mean, there's so many things. Needless to say, distraction, chaos, anxiety. So there are a lot of fundamental safety measures alone just out of improving dead time. That's free time. We're not trying to make the surgeon faster. We're trying to make Max Verstappen have a 1.8 second pit stop, not a 20-second pit stop. Cannot win a race with a 20-second pit stop. We all have been in environments many, many times in our career where we're enduring a 5-minute 1956 pit stop. And it's just not acceptable. It's not good enough. For my mom, for my excuse me, my wife, my kids, that is not acceptable, and it shouldn't be acceptable for anything else. So we have a way of dealing with it. For productivity, I mean, employment is crazy these days. I've never had a job in surgery. I've been independent my whole career, but you know, right now RVU is the standard of profitability, of productivity, of reward. You know, basically on 1.5 hour average time lumbar micro, 320 additional cases per year at that metric of dead time alone. So anyway, caseload, RVUs, safety, team stability, surgeon career longevity, all of these things are directly involved. Our platform really just uses AI, we use spatial computing, we use all the tools of this current generation of technology to literally optimize, organize, and choreograph our best possible surgery, but more importantly, create the data that tells us where our opportunities are, because no two teams in the world are alike. And I'll stop there. Thank you, everyone.